Welcome everyone to the BMW CCA M Chapter webinar, Let's Talk M Cars with EAG. I'm Matt Anderson, BMW CCA M Chapter Governor for the North Central. A little bit about myself first. I bought my first BMW in 2006 and later joined BMW CCA in 2014. The same year, I bought my first M car, which happened to be a great M3. And I don't know exactly why I let 8 years pass, missing all the great BMW CCA events, discounts at the local BMW parts counter, and vehicle rebates. So I encourage you to join BMW CCA. And if you're already a member of your local chapter, please add M Chapter as a secondary to take advantage of our content and events. Details are on our website, Facebook, and Instagram. With that being said, the board, Martin, Eve, Esteban, and all of the governors across the country are pleased to welcome Eric Keller, CEO and founder of Enthusiast Auto Group, for a conversation on his BMW preservation company. We're going to also talk about the various M3 generations, with the 6th generation now being delivered across the country. And if you're on camera, you can see Eric's not in his office like me. He's graciously offered to give us a tour of one of his super secret warehouses. So Eric, thanks for joining us. Can you give us a history of where EAG started?
Hey, thanks guys. Hey Matt, welcome everybody. Appreciate the opportunity, and I'm super excited to share our super secret warehouse number 1, as we call it, with everybody. EAG is the quintessential entrepreneurial college dorm room startup that was basically the way to turn my hobby and passion and I just love for these cars into my career that turned into obviously a full-blown addiction at this point. This is me talking to my fellow people around the circle here at our meeting, sharing with other like-minded BMW addicts that share this passion for these cool cars. And it really was kind of a blessing to turn said hobby and passion into our career. And my brother Evan and I, now 21 years in, we've built a pretty cool business that is effectively, like you said, a preservation company. And we're interested in keeping all the right BMWs, specifically the M cars, especially the cars that attracted us to the brand and our era of cars, in the right shape, in the right homes, in the right circulation. As you know, Matt, with your EAG E90 M3, and I think we're up to right around 10,000 or so M cars sold, which I think is only on par with, I think the manufacturer is the only place that sold more than us at this point. But we're more focused on the quality than the quantity, and keeping them in the best shape is what we've built our business now set up to do. And it all started really with that first experience with an E28 M5, kind of like, actually, well, not like this one. It was not anywhere close as nice as that one. But it was that experience, though, that really kind of gave me the idea of, hey, maybe we should focus on doing it better and having a service business that isn't going to take advantage of the situation as unfortunately I went through in my first experience with an E28 when I went in for an oil change, and $4,000 later it came out with all kinds of stuff I didn't think I needed at the time, and didn't really approve. But that's a different story for a different time. But we now are set up with 6 different facilities or buildings here at the main campus, doing the preservation work, of course, for all of our cars that we sell. But we have cars that are shipped in from all over the country at this point. Actually, I should say all over the world. We've got some cars from Canada and down south, and Europe on the books scheduled as well, to basically benefit from the experiences that we've learned in dealing with a couple hundred of these and a couple hundred of those, and seeing the best of the best and working on them today, 10, 20, 30 years removed from the factory production, and understanding what the challenges are, both on the calendar, but also with miles and seat time and just attrition. I mean, machines all wear out eventually, and you got to sharpen your knife every once in a while if you want to cut nice and smooth. So we definitely are pretty blessed to be able to do it with great people, though, that share the passion and the hobby. And so our rejuve program, putting these cars through the same program we put our inventory through, really has become our mainstay and our main business these days. And we're really ramping up and growing and adding more staff and more resources literally every couple of weeks at a pretty good pace here lately to keep up. But the driving experience with that E28 M5 though is what really got me hooked to the M brand, and now I've just been living and driving M cars every day since. It's been a really great experience.
Yeah, you certainly are living a lot of BMW enthusiasts like myself's dream. So you built this passion around preserving BMWs, buying them, selling them, keeping folks in the family, also servicing them, doing performance enhancements. If we start to talk about the various M3 generations, can you talk about the first, the most iconic M3 for a lot of us, and the E30 M3, and what you all are seeing and what your view is of the E30 M3?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see if I can turn this thing around. Don't see how I can do that, so I'll just have to wing it. So here in the warehouse, we've got pretty much an M3 of every spec other than the new G. The F80s just outside, but all, I mean, the race car for the street. And this car was quite controversial, I'm sure, at the time. It was built obviously to go out and win races, and that's exactly what it did. The history, I think, speaks pretty clearly to itself as the winningest race car. But it wasn't just regular races. I mean, it was going out doing rallies and all the DTM. I mean, it was the best kind of, most fun kind of racing you could go out and do, right? And so the E30 really kind of set the M3 model up for a pretty big shoes to fill for every generation, obviously, after that. And the boxy fenders and the big purposeful rear spoiler that obviously adjustable there. And I guess I could go this way. It might be a little easier with the Sportivo trim. It really is just a historical car by every measure. That first car. So we got our first week of great spring weather here in Cincinnati just a couple weeks ago, and then really great this past week. And first car out of this building, well, the dirtiest car now in the building is the black Sportivo, having driven it the last a week or so, because that just I couldn't wait. And we got delivery mileage still on the M2 CS, and I still wanted to get the E30 out first. So what's that say?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an iconic car that resonates with pretty much every BMW enthusiast. You talked about the Sportivo. How are you importing Sportivos? Are you importing them, or are they just reselling in the U.S.?
No, we've brought in now, I think 25 or so. I think 2 or 3 we've bought have already been in the States, but the rest we've imported from all over the world. This black one here I brought in. This was the first one we brought in from New Zealand, of all places. This was in 2015, like literally like the month it turned 25, which is the way we bring them in is the 25-year rule. Once a car turns 25 years of age, you can bring it into the United States of any build, make, emissions, etc. Certain states will have other requirements, like California wouldn't allow these to pass smog and carbon, all that. So that is a challenge with the Sportivos, for example. But yeah, I think this particular VIN is, I think, our 25th one of the 600 that are built. This is our second lowest mileage one we've brought in. This is a 13,000 mile car. We had a different red one that actually had 74 miles on it, I think. I know. It was exactly 74 miles. that car was the pinnacle, really. But it gives us a good measuring stick of what the new ones or the used ones should be like when you're comparing them to new like that. We had the BMW Classic actually go through that one from A to Z before bringing it in, and they're the king of the E30 food chain, but certainly not inexpensive. And like all E30 M3s, I mean, there's a high rate of attrition. They weren't super valuable and expensive a long time ago, even not that long ago, frankly. 5-10 years ago, they were quite a bit more affordable, half, if not less, than what they are today. And actually, it's more like 30% of what they were today 5-6 years ago. And they've definitely become quite the collectible car, but no different than any other E30 M3. They still get wrecked, they still get rusty, they still have engines that throw a rod through the side of the block when they hit 9,000 RPMs instead of 8 when you go for third and grab first. It happens, but definitely super great cars that I certainly enjoy driving. That's actually the first car I tracked last year was the Sport Evo as well. Get out and use it the way it was meant to be driven.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I'm going to pepper in some questions, Eric. One gentleman asked a question regarding E30 M3 values seem to be particularly high recently, and it doesn't seem to matter the number of miles that are on them. Can you speak just a little bit about any sort of current resales you're seeing on the E30 M3s?
Sure. Well, it's really great with the rejuve side of the business. We get to see a whole lot of stuff that we wouldn't normally see in our inventory. And a lot of the guys that are selling these cars these days will call us first and say, hey, are you interested in this car? Do you want to buy it? If not, I was thinking about selling it through this medium. What do you think? Can I get some free advice? We're always happy to help. And the E30s that are showing up for the most part that we're not buying and selling are, of course, going through that rejuve program that were purchased recently. And a lot of the auction sites, of course, bring trailers, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, but there are no shortage of other auction sites that are moving quite a lot of cars, and they all still need to be updated and brought back up to driver, friendly, reliable status. And mileage is a number, age is a number, and the better you take care of yourself, the better you take care of your car, of course, the better it's going to take care of you. And this black Sport Evo, it has 125,000 kilometers or so, which is 75,000 miles thereabouts. And it's nicer than most 10 or 20,000 mile cars that we'll see, but it's had a ton of money and a ton of energy and love put into it, both by the previous owners and frankly, not so much by us. We just bought it from the right people. And I think that'll be a recurring theme throughout our conversation today is finding the right car from the right people is really the best way to procure the best example, and having it vetted and gone through certainly by professionals, of course, the next step. But mileage, it's important, and there is no way to completely erase all of the miles. And there are things about a higher mileage car that simply will never be perfectly brand new, like a 13,000 mile car with all of its original Cosmoline still on the undercarriage and things. But they certainly will still drive really, really great at 200, 300,000 miles if they are cared for well. And relative to values, there's definitely a direct correlation. In a fully restored car is never going to bring what an original car will. And we have really seen, I guess, both sides of it, because we recently had a Sport Evo that was nut and bolt, basically brand new. The entire catalog of everything Sport Evo, when you could get it, was purchased, and basically a brand new Sport Evo was created. Had 149,000 kilometers on it at the time, and it sold for almost a high water mark. The delivery mileage car, of course, sold for more, a fair amount more. But it was pretty similar to what the range of this one would be relative to valuation. And the expense that previous owner though went to was extreme, and to do it to that level was probably in the, not counting the car, probably 140 or 50,000 euro plus the car. So that's a big chunk of change. 50, 60, $70,000 seems to be kind of the jumping in point for most of the E30 M3s. And there's a huge difference. I've seen some $50,000 cars that were okay. I've seen some that were terrible, and I've seen some $70,000 cars people paid 74 that were nowhere near as nice as a decent $50,000 car too. So the whole two people last standing in the auction room and things, I mean, it's a crazy time right now. And a lot of people are living with their wallet that they love and want to have in their garage. I can't say that it's all being done super intelligently all the time. We do a little more research and have a little more patience, but it's kind of hard when there's a 7-day auction timer on it. But 50 to 70 grand will definitely get you a decent E30 M3, most of which we're selling we're starting out around the $80,000 price point. I think we have one right now available at that level, and then they range up to 120, 150 for some of the better stuff. And
Appreciate
those are
that.
going
It
to
sounds like
be those will be in the strong number two, even getting into the number on Haggerty's.
appreciate that. As you're walking around, I noticed one of my personal favorites, the second generation E36 M3. And I think that car has a lot of history when you think about it, comparing the Euro version to the US spec version. Yes, that's it. That's the lightweight's one of my personal favorites. Can you talk a little bit about the second generation?
Sure. When the E36s came out, there's a little bit of, well, they almost didn't come to the United States market, as many people probably can recall, maybe of which are even on the call that signed that petition that was given to Eric Wensberg to bring that E36 M3 to our market. And, it's definitely a very, very historically important car, chassis-wise. The E36 was the largest selling M3 to date. And I think there's a fair amount of people that to this day are still in love with the M brand because of the relationship they had with their E36, whether it was a 328 or Evan and I's case, a 325, were our first E36s. First cars in our family, BMW I's, were 3 Series E36s. So we definitely have a lot to thank those cars and that chassis for. But, not quite the same M engine that the Europeans got, but we didn't have the price point to come with it either. And that's probably why they sold so many of them and sold well they did. The lightweights, 126 of those built, homologating for a host of different racing, IMSA being the main one. This is a PTG wide body, one of the more recent additions to our collection that was frankly purchased new by the owner of BMW San Francisco and raced. He never even titled it. It still was on its MSO when we bought it. So I guess we're technically the first owners of the car. But just a handful of these wide bodies built by PTG, and it's kind of cool to have a full race trim spec next to a delivery mileage lightweight that's never had all the GT stuff installed. This car has only 47 miles on it, and this is to the best of our knowledge the pinnacle of the mark, and again, a good reference point when we're going through and doing our customer E36 work of what it was like brand new in 1995. Well, we can go and look at the direction of the seam sealer as they laid it in the trunk when we were repairing that one that was hit 10 years ago and not fixed exactly right, which is kind of the mainstay of our paint and body department, fixing other people's work. It seems getting it right after it wasn't fixed the right way the first time. But E36s were certainly a big hit. Still a great driver's car and a great car to learn if you got any younger drivers wanting to learn the hobby and track and things. Super communicative car that I still love jumping in and driving. Not so much that one, but looking forward to getting that one out on track this year.
Yeah. Before we move off the E36, I'm a big fan of your YouTube page, and I saw you do a awesome review of the GT. Do you all still have that, and what did you think of it?
We did sell it. It wasn't for sale, but one of our clients saw it and he had to have it, and he's bought enough cars from us at this point. We realized that we'll have another GT here soon. He has a lightweight as well, and the GT was awesome. A really great car. I mean, it's kind of a hybrid. It's not as lightweight as the lightweight, but everything that's on the lightweight was driven from the GT. And I want to say there was, if the lightweight's about 200 pounds lighter than the standard, the GT is more like 70 to 90 pounds lighter. But then has the upgraded 295 horse B30 engine. The S50 B30. So it's a 286 normal, and then with the Group N cams and hot software, it's 295 horse. It's a great car. The color is the best part about it, though. That exterior color is just to die for, and the pictures do not do it justice. Even the lighting here didn't do it justice. Really awesome green, and I'm not a big green fan until I guess our little green M Coupe joined the ranks. But really a cool car that made fantastic noises. It was a cool video to make. Actually, it's I think our second or third highest viewed video to date. and it was a fun one to make for sure.
It's definitely a pretty unique, rare car. And one thing I like about the videos, you give us an opportunity to hear them and us kind of live vicariously through you while you're driving around your town. So I really appreciate those videos, and I'm sure everybody listening today appreciates those videos. So thanks for that.
Oh, thanks for bearing through them, because I have no idea what I'm doing still with that. Just buy a bunch of GoPros and figure it out.
Yeah.
I still don't totally know what I'm doing, but I'm having fun doing it, and get to go out and drive and call it work. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So if we leave the E36 and move into another very popular M3, it's the E46 coupe and convertible. What are your thoughts on that car? And then what is EAG seeing those come through?
Sure. This is a '06 M3 comp that we bought 12 years ago, thereabouts, maybe 10 years ago. Sold to a local customer, did all the service on it, ended up buying it back from him. And Evan's like, yeah, I got to keep that one. We just love that car. And it's been, I think it's maybe the second longest tenant in the EAG collection. E46s are awesome. I mean, it's really just, the E36, revised, 200 pounds or so more, almost 100 horsepower more, but it still had its own controversy when it came out. You really got to run that tack all the way to the end to get all of those 333 horsepowers stomping, and it's not a torquey motor like a lot of the AMGs and other competitors' cars were in the period, and so it did get a little bit of a, I guess, controversy, a little bit of pushback, as every M3 model has since. However, the E46 is really, especially today, I mean, it really is a very pure analog driving experience. They, again, made no shortage of them, and it definitely, work calls, definitely a thoroughbred and very successful track car and race car in its own right. The E46 GTR is definitely one that I doubt we'll ever have the opportunity of owning, but one that we certainly want to have with that V8. The convertibles, also probably my favorite drop top BMW. I actually even like it more so than the Z1. Well, the Z1's got the cool factor for days, but the E46 M3, if you're going to go out and drive, I mean, it's a really good, usable 4-seat convertible. And the values on these things have been very, very stable, linear in appreciation, which isn't always the case with most used cars, but they have been going up in value pretty steadily, really for the last decade. I don't think we're going to see any crazy breakouts anytime soon with E46s, but I can definitely say we're going to see a lot less and less examples with good miles coming to market. And when those that do, they're going to continue to probably push the needle. And the best ones are going to cost you 6 figures these days. It's definitely a car that you can use and drive, and they'll do big miles too. No big deal to get 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 miles out of them, but there are a lot of, again, with any used car, issues that you need to be aware of, and make sure that the motor's going to hold together. The SMG transmission, which was another big controversial point, of course, with the E46s, and I think it was about, overall, I want to say 55% thereabouts versus the between both the coupes and convertibles. And it's basically the same transmission, just obviously with a lot of hardware bolted on top with the SMG hydraulic systems and things. And they're not the end of the world. It's an okay transmission, but it does have some issues. And if it hasn't been serviced and hasn't been repaired, or hasn't had a pump replaced and a lot of other smalls done, I mean, bring your wallet a little bit when you do buy that one that's more original than not, if it's got in the mid miles, because you're going to invest in it to keep it going in the long term. But I do think that that's a pretty good place to park some money and drive and have a lot of fun and not lose your shorts. I think that's probably a good thing. You get in now and have 5 years, a couple thousand miles a year, probably even break even. You might even make some money. Not that that's the point, but if you have a lot of fun and make some great memories, then that's a win.
Yeah, I've got 2 questions for you on the E46. actually three. One of them is this the model that BMW started to add the competition pack? And if so, how do you feel about, does that, make the car that much better? Is it from a driving experience and then maybe from a value perspective?
You kind of broke up there at the first part of the
Um,
question.
Sorry about that, everyone. The question was, isn't the E46 one of the first cars BMW put the competition package on? And what are your thoughts on driving a E46 and then an E46 competition, or with the competition pack and then values on that?
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Uh, 2,410. That's how many G46s were made. Again, about 55, 45 SMG versus manual splits. Coupes only 2005, 2006 model years. A lot of the comp, the ZCP package accoutrement were the extra bits from the CSL. A lot of stuff on CSLs lately on the internet these days. Bigger brake setup, larger 1-inch larger rotors up front, hotter composite pads and discs. These wheels, which will be a spin cast forged, I think not quite 4 pounds, a little more than 3 pounds lighter on the front, inch polished. A diamond cube interior trim, which will be unique to the comps only. And then the steering wheel, which will be the Alcantara. They'll usually have one button just on the right side there for the M-Track mode. We do retrofit the full cruise control and the audio controls, if so desired, using the factory stuff as done here on Evan's car. And the comp package has a tighter steering rack too. I think it's a 2.9 turn lock to lock as opposed to a 3.2 lock to lock. And that's probably going to be the most noticeable difference relative to the driving dynamics. BMW did market that the comp package had a different suspension, but then again, every late 04, 05, 06 had a different spring rate, and I think they just kind of bundled those things together and called it a different. When you change the weight of the wheels, the car is going to feel lighter on its feet and give a little bit of a different feel, but the suspension between a comp and a non-comp are the same. But the steering rack will definitely be the biggest, most noticeable difference. Performance, unlike the newer comp, which every M pretty much since has had a competition option offered, and they've really pushed that more so from a marketing standpoint than a pure competition standpoint, I suppose. Maybe with these more early ones, but the power was the same, the exhaust was the same. I think the most notable things, though, really will be that steering rack and the wheels for the E46 relative to values. The competitions do sell for quite a bit more money. It was a $4,000 option thereabouts when it was new in period. You're definitely going to pay more than that delta compared to same two cars next to each other, statistically speaking. I guess it really depends on if you're buying a 10 or 20,000, 30,000 mile car or a 130,000 mile car relative to the spread between a comp and a non-comp relative to value. But you'll spend that $4,000 original MSRP delta at least, and the lower you go on the mileage, probably the bigger the spread will be.
Appreciate that. I've got another question. I think this one's a great question for you, Eric, being a preservation specialist. This question's from Mary. She has an E46 ZHP, and they're ready to step up to a E46 M3. And she's test driven some around her local market, and some of them have been modified, some haven't. But she's it's not just her, it's probably a lot of us. No one really knows what it's like to drive a car back in time. So how do you recommend someone, maybe they see a car on BMW CCA's classified ads, how do you recommend someone buy a car if it's not from you? I mean, obviously we should go to EAG, but if it's not you, how do you recommend, or how would you answer that?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question, Mary. The best thing I think in anything professionally is always to go out and find those that do it for a living and are living it every day. And whether it's accounting or medical field or anything, is find the best resource that you have access to, and then, of course, bounce it off of them. Our workshop is certainly at this point nationally set up, but you can't bring it to us to inspect it when it's in Maryland and you're in California and you're thinking about buying it. It's tough because you're really limited to the perspectives and experiences of others, and um, not to discourage, but you definitely want to do your due diligence. You want to, of course, go through the service records if you can. You want to have an inspection done by a BMW specialist. And franchise dealers are all fine and well, but when you're talking about a 15-year-old car, which is the newest E46 you're ever going to see, is 15 years old still, you're going to want to probably talk to somebody that's used to working on 15 and 20 and 30-year-old cars, because they're going to have a different perspective to do based on the standard protocol with the newer stuff. How do you tell how it drives compared to? It's tough, and frankly, a test drive, uh, it'll give you some indications as to the quality of the car, but that's the last thing that I do. And I'm going to know how it drives, frankly, after I go around it, check out the cosmetics, and of course, get under the car and go through it mechanically. We get a lot of calls. The do-it-yourselfers, no different than how I started doing this, is working on these myself. I don't want to do any paint and body work, but I can do all the mechanical, or vice versa. Call me when you get one that's super great mechanically, but cosmetically has some challenges, or vice versa again. And those cars don't exist. If it's all beat up on the outside, you think they did every oil change at the time they're supposed to do it? Really? I mean, come on, no. It's all very congruent. And if the outside's trashed, you can bet the inside of the motor is probably too. I don't see it being different in the workshop. So the best advice I would give somebody looking to buy any used M, I don't think we need to limit it to an E46 M3, is you really need to have a really high quality inspection done by somebody that knows what they're doing, not just these general inspection services either. And I've seen all these inspection reports on these cars that we've bought from all these people over the years, and every car has a record binder, and every single time we buy one of these, Evan and I individually, personally go through every single one of those records, and of course then that goes into our data pool of what questions to ask, and customer complains about X, Y, and Z, and what does that mean? Well, that means that car probably overheated. We should probably look in deeper to what those context clues suggest, and maybe we should stay away from that one. And it's tough. These are high performance cars that are meant to go around a racetrack. So the best advice, I suppose, would be patient. That's the best advice. The first one you see, it's probably not the right one. It might be. Blind squirrel will find some acorns every once in a while. But you definitely need to be diligent and be patient. Have your guard up, rightly so, because everybody's out there, especially these days, as easy as it is to sell cars. And I mean, I can imagine coming up, if I was 20 years younger coming into this as I was 20 years ago, now into the industry and selling these cars with Bring a Trailer and all the different marketing mediums, and how easy it is to make a car look good that isn't. This car looks fantastic. This is Evan's driver. I mean, we call it 50 shades of gray, because it literally is 50 shades of different gray. And you can't tell that probably much in the pictures right now, but it's a 125,000 mile bang around beater car that we have fun with. And look, the paint's all coming off. And not the end of the world. That's how we use it and drive it and enjoy it. And if we need to park it at the airport. But from 10 feet away, something where it's going to be all bush. I mean, every quarter at least, I get a car in, and I'm supposed to know what I'm doing, right? 10,000 cars Evan I've bought, and here comes this E28 M5 from Canada. And it's like, where's the car I bought? Because this sure ain't it. And it's like, man, I just screwed up. It happens. It's definitely something that it's important to find somebody you know and trust. And I think at the end of the day, it's really been a blessing for us, for the fact that there aren't a lot of great shops that have the experience that we do, and so cars are really coming from all over the place. I mean, we're many months out to book rejuves, and hopefully it's going to go down, but weight wise. But there's probably 50 cars at least right now that are here from all over going through, and it takes a long time to wipe the 10, 20, 30 years off.
Right. Okay.
Going through and putting a supercharger on a high compression motor might not be the best idea for longevity, and you might be putting a couple more motors in there too. But with every degree of complexity comes another. Don't want to maybe over-engineer things more, but the basics, the intake, exhaust, software kind of stuff. Of course, you can go through and do the suspension. Good old TC Klein is obviously a well-known staple in the industry, one of the best suspension tuners in the business. And there's half a dozen cars in this room that have his suspension on it. And probably a lot of guys and gals at home watching this as well that have benefit from experience from engineers that are not necessarily interested in modifying cars, but they're more interested in tuning and adding to the performance level of them.
I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a lot of questions on that. It's another one about exhaust. You answered, do it tastefully. Probably the major label exhausts are the best. That's what.
And I wouldn't take all labels to be the same relative to the engine. A lot of guys will say, "Well, Dynon sounds great on Dynon exhaust sounds great." Yes, but on which application? Sounds really great on an E46 M3, but so is an Eisenman. Well, does the Dynon sound the best on the M2, or does the Akrapovic? So it is a case by case. E39 M5s are a good example, because the Dynon actually sounds fantastic on the E39. Every E39 M5 needs an exhaust system of some sort. The target market and period for E39s that need that little label in the trunk to show you how to store 3 golf bags. Well, those mufflers were made for those guys too, so they definitely need some different mufflers. But the Dynon and the Eisenmans really sound great on those too. So it's a case by case, but it depends on what somebody wants, and tone or sorry, drone or tone or vice versa. There's a lot of different ways to set them up that will give you different results for sure.
Appreciate that. Now I'm looking at the chat box. There's been a lot of interest in your new M2 CS. Can you talk about how that is to drive? A lot of us may not have an opportunity to drive a M2 CS. Can you spend some time on that?
I can spend about 33 miles worth of experience on that. Okay. How's that?
Okay.
Maybe actually it might be more like 55 miles, I think. I did the Performance Center delivery January 11th on a Monday. My girlfriend and I went down. It was a great trip. Yeah, I got 66 miles on this. And I think it had 10 or 11 miles at the time I met the car. And I've got a cool video at the delivery center, which I've never been a retail client. I mean, I never buy stuff new, so this is a really cool experience. So I made sure to do it all. So just as Tom Plazinski was buying his EAG retail E92, here I'm doing the same thing with him at the Performance Center with this. And then shortly after I got back, I did a driving video that you'll see on the channel probably in the next week or two. I bought the first M2 right when it came out. I had one of the launch cars back in March of 16, right when they came out. It actually was pretty cool. Alpine white 6-speed. And the last 4 of the VIN, as I realized that the VIN stickers were all on each individual body panel, just like the E30 M3 North American spec. So of course I got like super excited seeing all my VIN stickers back where they belonged. And the last 4 were my birth year. I couldn't plan that. And so, of course, I fell in love with the M2, did the M2 comp for a couple years after that, 25,000 miles between those two as my daily drivers. And having driven all the greatest M's built over the last, well, since M came about, the M2 CS, yeah, it's wicked. I mean, it's so awesome. It's frankly more daily drivable, I think, than the comp with the adjustable suspension. It's got massive power. I did a Dynon stuff to my standard N55 M2, and that car become a good EAG repeat visitor now on its third EAG home. Just delivered it last Saturday. To some good friend clients up in Michigan. Love all the M2s, but the M2 CS certainly is. It's a significant car. I definitely think it's the best car BMW's got going at the moment for the driver, and throw the carbon brakes, and of course we had to get the one-off color from Misano relative to the others just to be different. But really happy with it. But I did find something really cool that us technical, detail-oriented geeks will love. Most of the M2 CSs, they'll have a little wave pattern, like maybe from a heat transfer in the carbon fiber roof, just right there above the B pillars on both sides. We've noticed this on a lot of the CSs. So even these days, with all the technology that we've got, there is no perfect. And so being diligent when you're buying a used one of these that has a lot more risk becomes, again, that much more important to be mindful of.
Yeah. Couple more questions on the chat, then we'll leave you. Any E60 V10s around?
We have an E63 V10 right now. Does that count?
I think so. It's a V10. It's an M car.
Yeah, we just brought in a 2007 M6 from the original owner. It's a black that has, it hasn't yet hit its 1,200 mile break-in service.
You're kidding me.
No, it has 1,000 miles on it. So couldn't refuse. Northern California, the spouse reached out and said, hey, this is my spouse's car, and it's low mileage, and we'd love to keep it a good home. The V10 M5s, we've had a couple of them, not too many. We typically default to the later production, 9s and 10s and 6-speeds, and certainly they didn't make very many of those. And we just simply haven't seen a whole lot that would hit our quality metric, not enough to make it a viable business opportunity, I guess, would be the very practical answer to that question. We certainly would be welcoming them open arms if they do hit those quality metrics, but most of the which that hit those quality metrics aren't necessarily for sale. Those guys are still in love with them.
Appreciate that. And I think that's a question. Is that a 850 CSI on your? Yeah, that was a question about that car. The yellow, yes.
Yeah, we got third. Yeah.
Oh, you have
one there too.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we got I think 4 or 5 of them right now on property. A couple of Euros too. Yeah, this is a Euro. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that, even though you were kind of ended our M3 generation talk? Maybe just close out on the 8 series. How do you feel about it? What are your clients looking for and on that model?
Sure. I love 850 CSIs. I love them. It's like an M5 with 2 doors. It's really a great driving car. But I'll tell you, everything we've talked about doing due diligence and buying the right one, multiply that. It's a difficult car to buy and not have a big surprise. We are putting typically about 20 grand into the best examples of the 850 CSIs that are still circulating these days in the future proofing efforts. 7 to 10 grand of that stuff they physically need, where the next 10 is the stuff that they're going to need over the next 1 or 2 or 3 years. They're really fantastic cars. They're beautiful. It was, I think, almost $1 billion budget to engineer the E31 chassis, $900 million back in the late 80s, if my memory serves. And the CSI, it's a McLaren F1 bottom end, basically. Or I should say the McLaren F1 bottom end is an 850 CSIs. Was it Fisher was one of the engineers. Yuta Fisher still works at BMW Classic. Her dad was one of the main engineers of the V12 engine, and it's really it's a really great engine, and it's a super advanced car for the era. but try to go boot your 386 computer up from 1993 and see if that, let me know how that works for you. Because there's about 20 of those in that car. And it's definitely one that will have some challenges if it's not been kept up and kept on power. You see all these cars have triple chargers on them. Every car, I think, in this entire building does. And that's really important. And that just goes down to the due diligence and caring for your car, because once those batteries go dead, all those capacitors on those circuit boards and all those little computers lose their charge, and they just might not want to wake up that next time after the fourth time they've been completely dead. Batteries work. And for this thing. So it's definitely important to buy the right one from the right person, and even then do keep some money backed up to go through and tune it up to get it to the quality standard that you require.
That's awesome, Eric. On behalf of everyone, we appreciate you giving us the tour, your expertise. I know you're a BMW CCA member, so thank you for that. I think a couple common themes resonated. It's always the right car, buying it from the right people, and leverage experts like yourself. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we talk about our upcoming events?
No, I mean, get out and drive. I mean, share these cars with the next round of enthusiasts. I mean, that's what got me into this, and probably most of you all too. And I think especially these days, we can't go out and do as much as we used to in our old lives, because life is obviously very different today, and it probably will be for the foreseeable, if not inevitable, future. And I think getting out and having fun with the cars and doing it safely and doing it with the club, driving schools, get out and learn how to drive these cars. The street survival program is definitely one of the best things going. That if you've got younger kids, even your neighbors that aren't even into BMWs, they don't even own a BMW. Street survival don't care. Let's get the kids through those programs so that they're not sitting there on their phones getting ready to hit that kid going through the crosswalk or whatever, paying attention to their phone, not necessarily what's going on around them. So get out and drive and enjoy the cars. And if you need some support along the way, or want to keep that right car in the right home, or tune it up, to call.
Appreciate that. So everyone, our next event for the M chapter is MX1, the second week of April. And we're doing some caravans. We're driving down, and we're going to have a tent on Saturday at the Cars and Coffee. So hope everybody stops by for a T-shirt and a sticker. Are you all going, Eric, to MX1?
Yep. We'll be there. I have no idea what we're driving. Probably don't even yet know where we're staying, but okay. We are going.
Awesome. Well, I hope everybody visits you and us at MX1. And like I said, on behalf of everybody at the M chapter, we thank you for what you're doing, and we thank you for your time and tour today. So everyone, have a good night.
Yeah, thanks for having me. See you guys.
Thank you.
See you.